Somewhere under the desert east of Los Angeles, the ground slips, and the moment it does, a clock starts. 90 seconds. That's how long some Californians might have before the shaking hits, but not the way you think. This isn't a prediction. Nobody can tell you the big one comes tomorrow. The terrifying part is what that 90 seconds actually is. A head start you only get after the earthquake is already unstoppable. And the people standing closest to it, they get nothing. 0 seconds. This is real, tested technology, and it works backward from everything your instincts tell you. Let's start with what's actually true, because the truth is stranger than the headline. There is no machine on Earth that can predict an earthquake. Not the day, not the hour. The U.S. Geological Survey says it plainly. There is no way to predict an earthquake. So when your phone screams a warning before the ground moves, it is not seeing the future. It's reacting to a fault that is already broken. When rock finally snaps along a fault, it doesn't send out one kind of wave, it sends two. The first is the P wave, and it moves fast, about 3.7 miles per second, and it generally does not produce strong shaking. It's a nudge, a rattle, the thing that makes a hanging lamp twitch before anything serious happens. Behind it comes the S wave, slower, and that's the one that throws furniture across rooms and drops freeway overpasses. If you've ever felt a quake start with a sharp jolt and then a rolling heave a beat later, you've felt both waves, the crack, then the sway. That tiny gap between them is the entire game. Sensors in the ground feel the harmless P wave first. A processing center calculates in seconds where the quake is and how big it's getting, and then an alert races out at the speed of a radio signal, far faster than any seismic wave can travel. The warning literally outruns the shaking. That's ShakeAlert, the nation's only public earthquake early warning system, serving over 50 million people in California, Oregon, and Washington. And on April 14, 2025, it did exactly what it was built to do. A magnitude 5.2 struck near Julian in San Diego County. Before the shaking spread, almost 700,000 phones lit up through California's MyShake app, and millions more got the alert through wireless emergency alerts and Google. People had seconds. For a moderate quake, seconds are a curiosity, enough to look up from your desk. But even here, the warning isn't perfect. The system is guessing fast from the first jolt of a wave, estimating how big the quake will become before it's finished growing. Sometimes it undercalls a monster in its first seconds and has to update while the ground is already moving. In rare circumstances, you may even receive an alert when there was no earthquake at all. Speed and certainty are enemies here, and the system chooses speed. For the big one, seconds are the difference between standing and buried, so the system works. That should be the happy ending. It isn't, because buried inside that success is a brutal catch, and it's the reason the 90-second promise is both real and a lie at the same time. The catch has a name. Scientists call it the blind zone. Think about where an earthquake is strongest. It's strongest right on top of the fault, at the epicenter. But that's exactly where the warning fails. The sensors need a moment to feel the P wave. The computers need a moment to decide it's real. The alert needs a moment to travel. And in those few seconds, the destructive S wave, which started at the same place, has already arrived within roughly 10 to 20 kilometers of the epicenter. An area may receive little to no warning before the shaking starts. You get nothing, or worse, you get the alert while your windows are already shattering. We've seen this in a California disaster. Go back to the 1994 Northridge earthquake, magnitude 6.7, 60 people killed, a hidden fault under Los Angeles. The USGS later mapped what an early warning would have done. In the zone of the strongest shaking, most residents would not have received any warning at all. The P wave itself would have reached them first. Think about what that means on the ground. In the desert towns nearest the fault, the alert and the destruction arrive together, or the shaking wins. The very phone meant to save you buzzes in your pocket as the walls start moving. That's not a malfunction. It's geometry. You cannot outrun a wave that starts beneath your feet, and distance isn't the only thing that decides who suffers. Magnitude gets the headlines, but magnitude alone doesn't tell you how hard your building shakes. Los Angeles sits on something treacherous, a deep bowl of soft sediment. When seismic waves hit that basin, they get trapped and amplified by factors of 3 to 5 relative to solid bedrock, and the shaking rings on long after it would have faded on rock. Two neighborhoods the same distance from the same quake can meet wildly different fates decided by the dirt beneath them. The fault sets the clock, the ground decides the damage, which brings us back to that 90 seconds. If the blind zone gives you nothing, where does all that warning time come from? The answer flips your intuition completely. It comes from being far away. Picture the nightmare California's scientists have actually modeled. It's called the shakeout scenario, a magnitude 7.8 on the southern San Andreas, built by the USGS and hundreds of experts. In it, the fault doesn't break everywhere at once. It starts at a single point, Bombay Beach, at the north end of the Salton Sea, out in the desert, and then it tears. The scientists who wrote that scenario didn't stop at the physics. They described the morning, 10 a.m. on a Thursday. The fault suddenly awakens near the Salton Sea, and in an instant, the ground on the two sides is offset nearly 44 feet. The rupture shoots northwest along the fault at 2 miles per second. And when the waves pour into that soft Los Angeles basin, strong shaking continues in the city for 55 seconds. Buildings riding the long waves like boats in choppy seas, some of them not so resistant. That's the version we get warned about. Now do the math that matters. The break begins more than 150 miles from downtown Los Angeles. The energy has to physically travel that distance. So while the fault is still tearing through the desert, sensors near the Salton Sea have already felt it, already sounded the alarm, already sent it racing ahead at the speed of light toward the coast. Los Angeles could receive 30 to 90 seconds of warning. That's your 90 seconds, not a prediction whispered before the quake. A head start bought by distance, while the disaster is already in motion and screaming toward you. And in 90 seconds, a person can do the thing that saves lives. Drop, cover, hold on, get away from glass and shelves before they turn into projectiles. It's enough to move a child under a table. It's enough to pull off a freeway instead of being on an overpass when it fails. But the real muscle of the system is automatic. Across the West Coast, ShakeAlert already triggers machine-to-machine actions in transportation systems, utilities, fire stations, schools, and hospitals, slowing trains before they hit buckled track, opening firehouse doors before the frames jam, stopping elevators at the nearest floor. Those systems don't hesitate. A human hearing an alarm can burn half the warning just deciding it's real. A valve doesn't. In the end, the 90 seconds may protect as much steel and circuitry as flesh. After the Julian quake, something small and telling happened. In the days that followed, more than 27,000 people rushed to download the warning app. The alert had proven itself, and people wanted it. But a warning you never set up is a warning you never get. And most people only think about that after the ground has already moved once, all of which raises a darker, deeper question. The one seismologists have chased for 50 years. If we can react to an earthquake in the act of breaking, could we ever catch it a moment before it breaks? Does a fault give any sign at all that it's about to fail? For a long time, the answer was a flat no. Then, in 2023, a study in the journal Science cracked that certainty open. Quentin Blatery and Jean-Mathieu Noquet took high-rate GPS data from thousands of stations and measured fault displacement in the 2 hours before 90 earthquakes of magnitude 7 and above. And buried in the noise, they found something. A faint shared signal, a subtle acceleration of fault slip beginning roughly 2 hours before the rupture, as if the ground were quietly straining in the direction it was about to slip. 2 hours, not 90 seconds. 2 hours of warning if it's real. That would change everything about how we live on a fault, but read that again, if it's real. Because this is where the story turns on itself. Other scientists looked at the same data and were not convinced. Kristen Bradley and Judith Hubbard went back through it and argued the apparent signal was removed by noise correction and therefore was not tectonic. And a reanalysis of tiltmeter records before Japan's massive 2011 Tohoku earthquake found no precursory slip in the hours before the main shock. So the signal is real in the data. Its cause is not settled. It might be the Earth clearing its throat before the largest quakes. It might be a ghost in the instruments. One geophysicist, Roland Bergman, put the stakes plainly. If earthquake nucleation often involves an hours-long precursory phase, and if we can learn to measure it reliably, a precursor warning could be issued. Two very big ifs, and today's instruments don't have the coverage or accuracy to track that slip for an individual earthquake. There's a reason this fight matters so much. In the lab, scientists can watch a fake fault fail under a press wired with sensors, and the crackle of tiny fractures always increases toward failure. Nature should do something similar, but real faults are messier, and the theory is unforgiving. The more uniform the fault, the shorter and smaller the nucleation, making it impossible to observe any precursor at all. Some earthquakes might simply start. No warning, no whisper, no beginning we can see, which leads to the strangest fact in this entire story. We don't fully agree on whether an earthquake even has a beginning we can detect. The thing we most want to see coming may not announce itself at all. There is one kind of warning sign that's real, we just can't read it in time. Foreshocks, something like half of all large earthquakes, are preceded by smaller ones near the same spot. The 1857 Fort Tejon earthquake, the last great rupture of the southern San Andreas, was preceded by foreshocks in the hours before it tore the state open, so the warning was there. The problem is cruel in its simplicity. A foreshock looks exactly like an ordinary small earthquake. There's no label on it, you only know it was a foreshock after the big one turns it into one. California saw this play out recently. In 2019, near Ridgecrest, a magnitude 6.4 struck, and a day and a half later, a magnitude 7.1 hit the same area. The first turned out to be a foreshock of the second, but nobody could have known that in the moment. Most small earthquakes are followed by nothing. If we sounded a big one alarm every time a modest quake rattled the state, we'd cry wolf hundreds of times a year. So if we can't predict it, the only honest question left is, how close are we? And here the numbers get heavy. Here's what 3 silent centuries actually mean. The Pacific and North American plates grind past each other at roughly 20 to 35 millimeters a year, about the rate your fingernails grow. It sounds like nothing, but the fault is locked, not sliding, so that motion doesn't release. It accumulates. 3 centuries of a stuck fault is 3 centuries of a spring wound tighter, storing every inch it should have slipped. That stored motion is the earthquake, waiting, and the southern San Andreas is the stretch that keeps seismologists up at night. Its southernmost section near the Salton Sea last ruptured around 1690, more than 300 years ago, against an average repeat time of roughly 150 to 200 years. The USGS forecast known as UCURF3 puts the 30-year probability of at least one magnitude 6.7 or greater at 60% for the Los Angeles region. And the Mojave segment alone carries a 19% chance of a magnitude 7.5 or greater in 30 years, the highest of any single fault segment in California. You'll hear people say it's overdue. Be careful with that word. Overdue is loose language, and scientists wince at it. Overdue is loose language. Earthquakes aren't on a schedule. A fault isn't a train that's late. 3 centuries of stored strain make a big quake more likely. It does not make it due on any particular day, or this year, or in your lifetime. High odds are not a date. And here's the piece Hollywood always gets wrong. The San Andreas cannot produce a magnitude 9. It isn't long or deep enough. The realistic ceiling is around magnitude 8.3, still catastrophic. But the ground-swallowing movie version is fiction, now the North, because the Bay Area has its own time bomb, and the USGS uses exactly those words. Scientists describe the Hayward Fault as a tectonic time bomb, due any time for another magnitude 6.8 to 7.0 earthquake. It runs directly under Oakland, Berkeley, and Fremont. It last broke in 1868, and its major quakes have historically come about 140 years apart. We're past that now. Across the Bay region, the 30-year odds of a magnitude 6.7 or greater cite at 72%. When the Hayward last broke, it killed around 30 people in a young Bay area. Today, the population living on top of it is roughly 100 times larger. The USGS has modeled that repeat too, a scenario called Haywired, and it reads like slow-motion catastrophe, broken water lines, fires, a region cut off from itself for months. 2 loaded faults north and south. It's tempting to feel like California is one connected system winding toward a single reckoning. It isn't. The San Andreas and the Hayward are separate faults with separate clocks. A break on one is not a countdown on the other. The threat is real. The link people imagine is not. So where does that leave the 90 seconds? Here's what's solid. ShakeAlert works inside the limits of physics. As of October 2025, more than 95% of the statewide sensor network is installed, with completion scheduled no later than December 2026. When the big one comes, people far from where it starts really could get up to a minute and a half of warning, and the people on top of it will get almost none. That's not a flaw they can fix. That's the speed of the Earth itself. Here's what's unsettled: whether a fault ever truly warns us before it slips. That faint 2-hour signal in the GPS data is the thing to watch. If it can be confirmed, and if we can ever build instruments sensitive enough to catch it in real time, the 90 seconds could one day become something far longer. In the meantime, what scientists actually watch is humbler than a prediction. Swarms of tiny quakes near the south end of the fault, slight shifts in GPS markers, the steady creep of strain. None of it can tell you the date. All of it tells you the fault is alive. For now, it stays 90 seconds, bought by distance, delivered after the fact. Somewhere under the desert, the fault is locked, loaded, silent. A needle rests flat on a seismograph in a quiet room, tracing nothing, and everyone who studies it is waiting for the same thing. That first small blip, the harmless one, the one that means the ground has already begun to move and the clock has already started to run.